everyone and welcome to the channel. My name is Anna Maria and this is the second episode in a series I will be doing about the witch trials on the channel. My first episode about Sweden I will link down below, and in this episode I will talk about England and a little bit about Scotland and Wales. I would also like to remind everyone that the witch trials were brutal, and I will take up themes that can be distressing, especially when it comes to the punishments and the sentences of the accused, so a warning for the episode. In England, torture and burning of witches weren't that common as in other countries, but there were exceptions. For example, if you had used witchcraft for evil purposes. And one of these methods were a water test or a witch test, where the accused were bound and thrown into the water. If they sank, they were human, but if they were floating, they were a witch. The death sentence was usually hanging instead of being burned, but there were exceptions to this as well. If you used witchcraft to kill your husband or commit treason, you would be burned at the stake. In England, women were the majority that were accused and executed for being witches. It is said that between 500 and 1,000 people were executed in England before the Witchcraft Act of 1735 came into law. There were more people tried for witchcraft in Scotland though than in England. The most intense eras of the witch trials were during the English Civil War that was between 1642 and 1651, and also during the 17th century. Both England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland had witchcraft acts for different years. These acts were foremost for the people that had used witchcraft for evil and deadly things, but later also included people that had connections with the devil or with evil spirits. I will talk about these acts briefly here. One of the first acts against witchcraft was the one in 1541 under Henry VIII. In this, some serious punishments were implemented against witchcraft and sorcery. Using witchcraft and sorcery was seen as a serious crime and you could be sentenced to death. It also included that you could not use witchcraft to get richer or to lure someone in for false love or other intimate actions. You cannot use sorcery to hurt anyone either, etc. One important point of this act was that the leaders of religion that normally were exempted from jurisdiction were not exempted from witchcraft trials or witchcraft charges. In 1562, the next Witchcraft Act was established underneath Elizabeth I. This act was a bit more forgiving, and you could only get a death sentence if you caused harm with witchcraft. If you committed any lesser offences, you would get incarcerated. It was 228 people that died by witchcraft according to the records for the time. The accused of these deaths were mostly women, but it was also 9 men that were accused. In 1563 a Scottish Witchcraft Act was formed, and in this both witchcraft and interacting with witches was serious crimes. The Witchcraft Act of 1603 under James I extended the death penalty to those who summoned evil spirits or communicated with them in any way. The crimes were also moved to the court of common law, so the accused would have a criminal procedure. Most people were hanged instead of burning at the stake, and for lesser offences you would get a prison sentence. The Scottish Witchcraft Act of 1649 had similar features in it, where dealing with the devil or evil spirits were punished by death. This act also included stronger punishments against those who worshipped a false god or were cursing. The Witchcraft Act of 1735 was the first one where everything changed. Instead of getting penalties for performing witchcraft, you could get penalties for pretending to performing witchcraft. You were seen as a con artist if you used witchcraft or sorcery. And you could get a prison sentence or a fine for pretending to do witchcraft. And this act took out all the other acts up till now. This act included both England, Scotland and Wales. Janet Horne was the last one that was executed for witchcraft in the British Isles. She was executed in 1727. It isn't certain that her name was Janet or Jenny, because this was a quite common name to give the witches in north of Scotland. Janet was arrested in the town of Dornoch in the Scottish Highlands. Janet had a daughter that had deformities to her hands and feet, and this was the main reason that the neighbors accused Janet of witchcraft. They said that she used her daughter as a horse to ride to the devil. The judgment was swift. They believed the neighbors. They were seen as good witnesses, and both Janet and her daughter was sentenced to death. The daughter ran away before the execution, and I haven't been able to find anything more on her, so she probably was never found and managed to escape. Janet was not that lucky though. She was sentenced to burn at the stake. She was smeared in tar and displayed around town before she was burned alive. There is something called the Witch Stone in little town Dornoch, and this is supposedly the place where Janet was executed. And that was all for this second episode in the series about the witch trials. In the next episode I will talk about Germany. If you like this episode, please like, comment and subscribe, and don't forget the notifications, and I will see you in the next one.